What if I told you you could release a blood-curdling quake that destroyed everything within your wake? What if I also told you could bring down the skies themselves, raining meteors on just about everybody? What if I also gave you the ability to unleash a torrent of ice that consumed everything it touched? Okay, what if I told you could also snap your fingers and just about let everything die? Whether that's from a cool laser beam or an ice pillar, good old Vlad the Impaler style, right through the chest. All that. Or the anus, I suppose that's more fair. Anyways, what if I also told you that you could drop nuclear barrels? Or call down Thor's wrath? Also throw down tracking saw blades that follow wherever you look? And what if I told you could be 100% safe while doing it because of your faithful pixie companions backing you up? Well, have I got a build for you? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Torrent. Torrent, a strong or fast-moving stream of water or liquid, or otherwise known as a subtle, violent, and copious outpour of something. Now, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully the build in the background is speaking for itself about the kind of madness that we've unlocked together. But I thought I'd take you down story time before we get into the specifics of what's happening. I'll be patient with me, all that. Now, so how I came to this build and what this build is trying to do is to make the ultimate caster. Essentially, one of the best things that comes with Wonderland is the amazing magic. The only negative is that some magic spells just suck. Bad. Especially legendaries, frankly. Please, Gearbox, fix that. Anyways, and I desperately wanted to give you guys a build that allowed you to dual wield spells. There's some builds that function off of action skill use and all of these things, but I just don't want to do that. I want to be the ultimate caster, just constantly letting it rip, constantly having fun different ways to play. So that was my goal, to create a build that essentially allowed you to use ambidextrous double casting, as well as give you a ton of ways to play and a ton of spells to use that are all very, very viable and different. Now, in doing that, I think I kneecapped my future self hard. The reason why is because this build, yes, is called Torrent, but simultaneously could also be called, depending on the spells you use and all this, Apocalypse, because we're raining down meteors all the time. I have given you 3 types of meteor spells gifted to us by our lovely community, which I'll credit a great deal at the end of the video. Please stay tuned to that, because people deserve their credit. Also, Torrent, because we're basically constantly casting and outputting a crazy volume of spell damage and just an onslaught of damage, because our pixies are also nuts. Another name it could be called is Quake, because one of the coolest things is unleashing 2 torrents of just devastating earthquakes that just rip apart everything within its path. Also, it looks so goddamn cool. It's like you're unleashing a virus onto the earth. Anyway, that's not, okay, that did not age. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. And finally, the last name we could give to this build is the Pixie Grandfather 2.0, the very first build I ever made. One that I wanted to embrace the summoner kind of meta. All granted, this one is more on the spell side of things, more than the summoner side of things. I think Spore Warren's just too good at doing the summoner kind of things. Granted, we still have a lot of the things that we do, except we're not as dependent on Hydras. We're more dependent on casting, and that to me is a bunch of fun. Now, what I meant by kneecapping myself is I gave you guys a lot of things here. Sorry, it's a lot. I gave you guys like 5 different builds in one build. I'm not trying to talk myself up here. I'm kind of sad. I'm still in my mind debating whether this was a good idea, because my future self is essentially out of like 5 builds. I've never been good at the whole YouTube thing. I've always been better at stacking value and hopefully giving people bang for their buck. So alas, let's stay to the course and to keep doing that. Granted, hey, me in the future, sorry about this, but also, you better learn to sink or swim, bitch. You better get creative real quick. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that aside, let me just do a quick explanation of what you're going to be able to have access to within this build. Essentially, I give you guys a bunch of legendary spells that are already kind of queued up and ready to go. Your pixie Tediors are going to act as kind of wands, okay? Like magical wands that are going to deeply amplify whatever element you want to do. I'm giving you guys cryo elements and blood magic, or dark magic, sorry, elements to use. Respectively, you have a dark magic pixie that's really cracked, and you have a cryo pixie as well that both have on spellcast increased damage dealt to the respective element of the gun. Now, I also gave you guys many spells, most having an allegiance to either cryo or dark magic. And essentially, it's really simple. Whatever you would put on in terms of your spells, if you put on 2 types of cryo spells, then you would use the cryo pistol as kind of a stat stick for your damage. Also, you could change out your necklace to either be dark magic damage scaling or, of course, cryo scaling. So those are the only things you could like augment if you wanted. To be honest, this is excessive. This is going to literally give you the time to kill of 1 second if you make sure everything is in the right alignments. Now, some favorite spells that I would highly suggest you guys use. Moo, or this spell right here. I can't think of the name. This one. It's amazing because I'll talk about it in the explanation of why we're doing so much damage and how we're like synergizing in more than we ever have in any build that we've made thus far. But that one just does amazing damage. Also, a Glacial Cascade hits like a truck, but given it's a little beat by range. The classic damage output of the Fistful of Ice, or the snapping your fingers and pulling an ice spike out of the ground. I also gave you guys the Quake, which to me is just so fun. Granted, it's limited by, you know, the sky, and there's a lot of bosses that go in the sky. And again, you can mix and mash whatever spells you want. I would heavily advise, though, you try to stay on element. So I gave you a Meteorite that is cryo, and I could also give you guys Glacial Cascade that's also cryo. So you could use both for the ranged enemies, for the long-ranged enemies. Also, some of them have multiple charges, but granted, you should be always able to get back to your spell within like 5 seconds at the least. And you have multiple charges of those, and also your pixies will keep you alive very much so, specifically the blood magic one exponentially. All that you need to know is that this build in every way was designed for people who wanted to have a fun time with all that Wonderlands offered when it comes to magic. I gave you guys so many spells that are duplicate. If you guys want to dual wield them, the identical version of them, you can. If you want to mix and mash it, you can. And I'll explain why we've picked the enchantments that we have and why everything is sequencing in a moment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I leave you, I would like to ask you guys and also tell you guys that we are moving a lot of our future Wonderlands content over the next couple weeks to a new channel. That way, if people just want to watch the Wonderlands or the gaming videos, they can go over there. It's a brand new channel. That way you will not get any sort of extra baggage, such as like you know, goofy fun meme videos, or me talking about TV shows I desperately love and want to talk to you about, anime and such. So they'll be separate. They'll all still be there. It's just you can choose what you want to opt into and what you don't want to. So if you like the Wonderlands content and you want to keep seeing builds, I'll keep making them. I'll keep doing my best. Granted, we may have peaked. I said that last time, but you know, it's totally possible. This is my final, you know, we've reached the top, okay? And of course, the next build I want to work on is an homage to Krieg, so hopefully you'll check out the new channel. That's where all of the Wonderland testing and goofy videos and news updates and all of those things, so if people just want some good old gaming content, especially for Wonderlands, that's where it'll be. This channel will be where we do streams. Also, really quick, on Sunday, the last hour of our stream, we usually stream for 2 hours, the last hour of that stream over at Twitch on Sunday will be us giving out the save file to console people. I'll be trying to do that for as long as I feel like there's a demand for it. Please do not interrupt other streams for that. That will be the relegated day that where we try to be a good old community spreader of cool, fun things. But alas, ladies and gentlemen, on to the explanation. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you dearly enjoy the build. And yes, thank you again for your time, and take it away, me, in the future. And alas, ladies and gentlemen, now we get on to the explanation of what the hell's happening. First off, you've seen some of our other builds. Oh my god, maybe we got upgrades on upgrades. It's crazy. So first things first, we got much better pixies. Like crazy much better pixies, which again are basically acting as a stat stick for us. So, what's the best way to explain this? Let's explain one individual thing at a time. This is kind of not really a part of the build, but it helps to just know why things are sequencing in the way that they're sequencing. Essentially, the reason why pixies are so damn good, well, they're only really good for people who build spell damage and companion damage. The reason why is because pixies scale off of spell damage and companion damage, and they count as both of those things. So these weapons, just by nature of leveling up our spells and trying to do as much spell damage, are going to inadvertently hit like a truck as well. Not only that, but because I gave you guys two of the best elements I believe in the game, dark magic as well as cryo, that's going to be doing great CC, and that's going to be healing you immensely. But granted, you can probably just stick with the cryo one, because the cryo one also is going to do dark magic damage, which is in turn going to heal you. Now, let me explain one thing that's kind of crucial to all of this. And it all starts with spell stack weaving, or spell weaving stacks. Okay, so you're able to get, I believe, 8 of these at a base. If you have this perk, you're allowed 8. But if you have 1 point within your class mod into this, you are able to get an extra 3, giving you 11. Now, some people I've seen haven't been fighting to get this, but I think you absolutely should. The reason why is because you might be saying, oh, well, GRINN, it's only 30% lack of spell damage. I can kind of get by that. Well, not really, my friend, because if you guys look up here, based on your spell shot power, which is found within your class mod and all that stuff, spell weaving does not scale by 10, but however high your spell shot power is. So we have 73 times 3, okay? So that is not just 30 damage, that is a metric F-ton, trying to be PG here, F-ton of damage right from this, not having that one skill. Also, 11 stacks of 730, I think is like 800 something. So, here's another part that's intrinsic to what we're doing with our build. So we have an ungodly amount of spell damage, 800% bonus spell damage, madness. And with all the buffs we're doing, probably more than that. But let's just say spell damage, 800%. So with this class mod, we are taking 800% of our damage that's on spell damage and cutting it in half and putting it into our abilities. So now our abilities are detonating with 400 bonus damage in them. Awesome. Really heavy hitting abilities. Now, why does that matter? Well, because Graveborn specifically maximizes pixies as well as basically additive damage. Let me explain. So we have this spell right here. So like I said, specifically in regards to our pixies, they scale off of companion damage and spell damage. So spell damage, we're going to be tacking that onto our pixies. Even when it's cryo, it's going to be melting the world. Not only that, but we are going to be getting this because I wasn't aware of this, but this is maybe functioning too well right now. It is, I think, it's weirdly scaling way more than it says. And also, it's double dipping into our pixies, because our pixies count as companion damage, so they benefit from this, and they count as spell damage, so these are stacking on top of each other, giving your pixies that much more health, also giving your pixies that much more healing to you. So this is why you can get away with using the cryo one and be pretty okay, all that kind of stuff. Not only that, but because your pixies and your spells count as spell damage, you are going to be detonating something called Blast Gasp. What this is going to detonate whenever you do spell damage, and it's going to take your spell damage and make it into an AoE explosion that scales off of your ability damage, okay? Why is that relevant? Because with our class mod, we're scaling up a lot of our ability damage through our spell damage. So we're like weirdly sequencing or triple dipping and some crazy weirdness happening with this. And that's why we're sequencing and picking what we're picking. But this is not the only skill that benefits from having an innate 400 bonus ability damage, which we're getting through our class mod because of our insane spell stacks. We're also getting benefits to this, so our hydras will melt things even faster. Okay, now let's get rid of all the other baggage that we kind of have sitting here. Okay, so let's tidy up here. We're going to get this because we want extra cooldown. We'll talk about why we're not getting this in a moment, but we're going to get this because we want cooldown, because some of the spells that we have are a little bit long cooldown wise, and that will just give us the ability to completely fully send them all at the time. I'll try to slow down. This skill will help you chew through the dot damage that you sometimes eat while doing the Chaos Chambers. That you eat a barrel, you step in a pool, and the dot is chewing you up well past the encounter. Not a really big deal, you die in the encounter after everything's dead. You'll just get re-instanced without taking a life, so it's not that bad. But it also just gives you a lot more survivability because we are going to constantly be casting, my friends. Constantly. And this is going to give, within 2 casts of your spells, 100 HP, maxed out. It's incredible. Not only that, but again, our pixies count as companion damage, so they're going to be scaling off of this, which is wonderful. Oh, and you guys may be saying, why aren't we getting Dark Pack? For whatever reason, Dark Pack is like significantly underperforming, and this is incredibly performing. And even if it didn't, you'd still pick this just because your pixies are double dipping into that, and that just gives you too much survivability to not take, you know? And lastly, we're getting this, just good spell damage as well as good survivability. Helps you massively do more spell damage as well when you get kills, or when you just use spells. So the more spells you use, the more spell stack weaving you get, and the more stacks of this you get, which of course gives you even more spell stacks. And then last we have this. So we have 2 perks that are kind of similar here. When our health is low, we deal amplified damage. The reason why that's relevant and why we have that on our shield is because whenever we go down, if we do go down, this is just some reassurance that you'll get right back up, as well as just giving us some more healing because we are using this shield, which we'll talk about in a moment. We're not done cleaning up our skill tree. We are getting more critical damage with our spells. We are also going to get our fire rate increased because our pixies do benefit from fire rate. So the abundance of spell stacks that we have are directly feeding into fire right now. Our pixies are going to be mowing down everything. This does scale up your pixies, that's why we're buying that one. And alas, we are getting this one that's going to stop our shield from regenerating, and of course giving us a bunch of spell damage on top of that. The reason why is because we have a shield that doesn't need to regenerate, and we do such an overabundance of healing that we don't really need a shield. And yeah, we're able to benefit from the off when your shield is depleted bonuses, hand over fist. So works out that way. Now let's get into our gear. So here's the interesting thing. This is where like 80% of my time and pain has been, is in re-rolling things. So let's get into it. So like I said, these 2 are going to kind of be your magic wand / stat sticks for whatever you want to play. So I gave you guys an absolute abundance of spells. All amazing, all interesting, all different, all hit really, really hard with some outstanding spells for sure, which I'll let you guys know about if you guys are wanting to just destroy the world and not just have funner ways to engage with the game, although I gave you both, so hopefully that's fun for you. So in the last build that we created, there was a lot of hubbub about what enchantments work with what. I heard people say that on spell cast does not stack. I've heard people say that on spell cast elemental bonuses kind of things don't stack. I've tested everything and everything is amplifying itself. It works, okay? So you can accept that at face value, but let me explain. So on spell cast does stack. What doesn't stack is an identical elemental a bonus. So if I had to on spell cast increase elemental damage by 20% and I had that on my gun and my melee weapon, that wouldn't stack. However, if there is a slight deviation, so for instance on spell cast we have elemental damage by 20%, and then of course we have it here on spell cast get frost damage specifically. These 2 do stack. But there is one outlier to this rule, and that is on spell cast increased damage dealt. These stack together infinitely. So you could have every single enchantment that you could possibly hold on spellcast increase damage dealt by 15%, and everything would cumulatively stack on top of each other. Okay? So that's the one exception to the rule, and that's why it's super simple, and I tried to make things simpler. And also, I think this is doing a lot because of the fact that we dip into just about 5 things. Like we want our spell damage to be good because that's going to directly translate with our class mod into our ability damage. And when our ability damage is good, that means we're going to be able to detonate blast gas. And when our spell damage is good, we're going to be able to detonate blast gas. When we do companion damage, that's relevant. So buffing everything statically like that is going to buff all of us because we're doing companion damage, we're doing spell damage, ability damage. So all of that is intrinsic into paying it forward essentially. And lastly, the one thing that I picked this because it kind of helps you in Fight for Your Life. It also gives you a little more survivability. You could put on spell cast, gets you 15% more damage. You could put something else here if you want. But for me, I never found I needed more damage. And what I could use is a little bit more healing, as well as I could use whenever I do get low health, I can just zip myself right back up because our dark magic damage is going to be hitting that much harder, healing us a great deal. Whenever we get low health, we just do a super surge of damage and that usually picks us right back up. Which is pretty chill. Not only that, but this shield is absolutely fantastic. We got reload speed when it's depleted and movement speed when it's depleted. Amazing. Not only that, but we're getting 17 resistance generally from everything and 100 damage bonus when enemies are nearby. Madness. Also, you guys should know what our wand does. You bonk some enemy with your wand, and now you're going to be doing 80% a critical chance for your spells. Incredible. We have some amazing rings here that are going to scale you up immensely when your ward is not full, so that's why we're also using that and benefiting wholeheartedly from it. Granted, our class mod is not perfect. It's buffing Spore Warden and not just Spore Warden and Graveborn. Mind you, the main value is, of course, by buffing Spell Shot, by giving you a great deal of spell stacks, etc. And lastly, I gave you guys these these two things, frost damage amplification, and of course a dark magic amplification, both buffing spell shot, both being volatile, so you'll be able to rock this and nuke just about everything that you could want with both of these. So good to go with that. Okay, so that's how everything's intrinsically working, and now you just have access to 1,000 different ways to crack the egg. So let me talk about some of the amazing spells that I'm going to give you guys. Again, this is cryo, so we are going to put on our cryo necklace, and we are going to try to use our cryo pistol. If you don't do this, it's not the worst, it's just not optimized damage, but you still be able to nuke just about everything. It just won't happen in 2 seconds, it'll happen in maybe 6. Which is fine. We're okay here, people. Jesus. So this one I think is maybe going to be the best possible spell that I have. It's this. Isn't that mental? Holy shit, man. It's just absolute madness. But you're just casting 2 meteorites, and they come back so fast. You guys can see 2 seconds, 1 second, and they're already back. We can just keep those casting. And sometimes they come out from the ground. It's weird. They always seem to hit, where sometimes that's the fuck up of certain things. Also, because we're constantly activating these, we're constantly summoning dark hydras that are just spitting out ammo for us, which feeds our pixies and all those lovely things. So this is probably one of the top spells that I have for you. The other top spell that I have for you, at least when it comes to my favorite, and it's also really good, is Quake. Again, this one is just madness, doing double Quake. And again, the only thing that you're really going to need to focus on is to stay on your element allegiance. That's kind of the only thing. So if you can go like dark magic with other dark magic skill, but I would suggest staying on element, because that's what this is buffing, and that's just kind of, yeah, you can kind of get away with it. It's not like it's going to make or break your damage, it's just going to make you instantly do optimal damage, I guess. But anyways, this is Quake. It's just insane, and it's yeah. When you get far away, you can really see the madness of it. But yeah, oh dude, it's so crazy. Anyways, and they come back incredibly fast. You guys can see that they're almost already back, and you can just spam those, and those do so much damage. It's crazy, and they do so much AoE. Granted, they are locked to being on the ground, and there are a few bosses that refuse to touch the ground. I also promise you guys that you could nuke the world with some crazy barrels, and that has crazy AoE. Granted, these ones don't come back too fast, but it's still fun just to mess around with it. Even just keeping one in your offhand, you'll be good to go. And of course, I gave you guys the duplicates of both of these types of spells, so if you want to dual wield these, you can. I would suggest using the one that is double with multiple spell charges, because I found those to be significantly better. But yeah, you can snap and just impale people like Vlad the Impaler. You can also throw a fistful of ice in people. It's crazy, and you constantly can get these to come back fast. It's super wonderful. As far as what is like really, really good, again, I would say that, what do you call it, Moo or Twister is whatever this one's called. This one is also madness. This one is the thing that nukes people, and the reason why is because essentially any spell that hits multiple times, or like the meteorites is so good because it kind of hits multiple times as it's hitting, it's detonating constantly. And the reason why you want something that has like times 16 is because every single time we do an instance of blast gas damage or spell damage, we're going to activate blast gas, and that's going to have a chance to detonate back to back to back to back back. It's a 20% chance to happen, so you can have that detonate multiple times, which is also why pixies are so good. Anyways, yeah, this is insane. That will shred just about anything that it touches, and also it comes back relatively fast as well. And again, in the downtime, you'll be throwing your pixies, which again is a good antidote to one of the problems that I think a lot of pixie builds were having, which is the fact that eventually you'll get low on ammunition because you're going too buck wild about throwing your pixies, when if there was a reason to stop and cast, then that'll be a good break point for you not to completely mindlessly accidentally empty your entire magazine, right? Lastly, this is probably one of the strongest combos and is more akin to our pixie build, but essentially it's just double Buffmeister. If you throw your pixies, this will absolutely annihilate just about anything in the game. But this Buffmeister is buffing, first of all, it's volatile. It's also buffing Zap and Kachow, I think, which basically it's buffing ability damage and of course spell damage. So that's going to make your pixies sing, because your ability damage is good because it's going to scale up your blast gas, which is what your pixies can detonate essentially. So madness there, but that's really strong. Again, make sure to switch out Frost for dark magic whenever you're using the little sacrificial, like little doll thing, whatever that is, Jesus. Also, you know how I showed you guys the awesome meteorites that we just used? Well, we have those in dark magic. So if you want to use the meteorites for dark magic, this one also knocks things heads in. It's incredibly good. It also comes back very fast again. So if you want to use some dark magic, you can. And lastly, this was the whole reason why I started and embarked on making this build. It's Glacial Cascade. It's like my favorite spell in the entire game. It just looks so absolutely sick, and I wanted to make a build facilitating it that actually can make it do damage, and this was the build that can do that. So you activate 2 Glacial Cascades. It's just like a thorn crazy thing, and again, this does melt enemies, unlike just using one snap of your fingers and you summon an ice spike. You can summon whole torrents of them, letting that ice just chew through everybody. Granted, that is it can only impact when it's on ground, but also it comes back immediately almost, which is wild. And frankly, I don't know if I should save some like little things for you guys to like discover, because there's plenty, plenty more, man. One thing I would be remiss not to talk about, because it's just too fun, is this last one right here. Essentially, it's good. I'm not sure if it's amazing. I think if I had multiple charges of it, and if I had it times 2 or 3, then that would be nuts. But this is the legendary spell that's just fantastic. But that melts people. That melts bosses specifically. And it comes back so quickly. So you can constantly keep doing that, snapping your fingers and creating all these little balls that will just turn into these death, heat-seeking, monstrous things. That one's very good. If you can get these in volatile or multiple charges and at least times 2, madness. Absolutely madness. Oh, also, one more thing. I did mention that you could summon forth, what is it? Or I don't know, I talk out my ass, to be honest, but I said you could summon forth Thor's Wrath or something like this. Also works as an Arc Torrent. We do plenty of damage, just granted, this is the one spell that doesn't really harmonize with bossing, just because you're kind of sitting there holding for too long. You kind of want to have spells that you can constantly output. Again, test what you want, have fun, ladies and gentlemen. The goal for this build from the get-go was just me doing my absolute damnedest to try to give people access to a mage, access to casting all kinds of spells, and for a lot of them to be viable and fun, because sometimes you pick up a spell, it's awesome, you use it, and then it's on cooldown for a year, and you're just like, well, this was fun while it lasted. Or sometimes you use a spell and it has some of the coolest, like again, Glacial Cascade looks endlessly awesome, but doesn't hit at all really hard until you scale it up by 800%. Also, pixies, just by nature of us building the spell build, have just become insane because they scale off of spell damage as well. I don't know if it's better than our Spore Warden, because our Spore Warden debuffs people a great deal and buffs a lot of companion damage, so probably somewhere along the line equals out. But alas, man, this is fantastic. We get so much healing because every single time we cast a spell, we're regenerating our health, and the fact that we're casting 2, we're basically regenerating our full health, and the fact that we're doing so much blood damage on top of everything else we do, we are basically unkillable, or at the very least, as soon as we take a knee, we'll just pop right back up. Easy peasy. Also, our pixies will kind of morph through walls and do amazing stuff. This is here just as a stack bot for you to get into bosses. Just keep shooting and reloading, and you'll reload pretty fast, and then you'll build up spell stacks and then just nuke the boss. Which, by the way, I just didn't have time to grind through the raid bosses, but I have one quick clip of us just burning down a couple of them. Hopefully you guys trust me that that's what every encounter looks like. Yeah, thank you. So you can throw razor blades and the wreck. Mind you, this one is also not great for bossing, but pretty good for everything else. But alas, my friends, that is it. Hopefully that made sense. Forgive me for talking a little too much. Also, as far as this is concerned, pump strength, pump wisdom, because we're mainly doing critical damage, is going to be benefiting us, as well as status damage. And then, actually didn't put many more points into critical damage. I put much more into spell cooldown, because we're just benefiting more from that. I felt like it was much better for me to always have my spells, and for them to be 5 seconds away almost all the time, rather than for there to be this weird chase around critical damage and all that stuff. Worst case scenario, you can always melee something and get a surge. As far as myth rank, it's actually been a long time since I've actually spent my points, just because I'm waiting. I'm trying to nuke myself down a little bit, just so we're not having the most skewed looking thing ever. So yes. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, a shout out to all of the fantastic people in our community. Amazingly brilliant. These pistols came from a person named Aggro within our community. Also, he streams. Fantastic person. I'm sure you'll see some of his builds in the Borderlands community in no time, because he's endlessly creative. Of course, I got, where is it? These amazing volatile quake things with double charges. Golly. I got these from a lovely curator that I I'm a hermit, I don't know anybody, but I've been a fan of them for a while. They came from the Outriders community from when I got on board, at least. And his name is Nick. Nick something. Hopefully in my head or on screen I wrote the name down. Nick, boom. Google search that or YouTube search that and you'll find him for sure. You've probably seen some of his builds already. I got this from here. It's absolutely fantastic and such a blast to play. What a wonderful find. As well as some people within our community, some lovely, lovely people. Lone Syndicate gave us a lot of the meteorite spells that are just cracked out of our mind. The ones that have such a reduction to cooldown that actually makes meteorites viable to some extent. Both the dark magic meteorites and the insane cryo meteorites. Both of these were given by him. Thank you, Lone Syndicate. Also, Glacial Cascade was also given by Lone Syndicate, as well as our boy Fluff in the community as well. Big shout out to that as well. Also, the rings and the necklaces, which are absolutely fantastic. This is a little bit long-winded, but there's a person in the Borderlands, Wonderlands community called Moxie. Fantastic. I'm sure you guys have seen him. King of damage, all that. In his community tab for his save files, a person dropped an amazing mage build as well, and that's where I got these 2 rings as well as the necklaces, the frost damage and of course the dark magic damage. Shout out to that person. I don't know what your name was, forgive me. I was just trying to find gear that was fun for people to engage with, trying to answer the question essentially of how can we give people as fun as a time as possible, as well as actually give people multiple ways of experiencing that fun. Because that was the one thing I didn't want to have happen with this build, is I didn't just want to give you guys a bunch of ice spike, or the classic thing I've been seeing everywhere around, the snap your fingers and summon Vlad the Impaler's ice spike, or a fistful of simple cast. I wanted to give you guys the ability to enjoy the legendary spells in the game, as well as enjoy some of the other niche meteorite spells. We kind of tried to give you guys as many types to have fun with as I possibly could. And I hope you guys enjoy. But by all means, ladies and gentlemen, please go run around the Wonderlands, community and go give some love to some of the most amazing and creative people I've ever had the premise of being sitting near, maybe not very close. I'm a hermit in the woods somewhere, nowhere. Also, again, ladies and gentlemen, before I leave you, all of the content that from the next couple weeks, we're going to be shifting over to our new channel called Brothers GRINN. It's what our Discord name is, and it's kind of where our new gaming hub is going to be, just so that you guys can filter through some of the content that you maybe don't want. If you guys don't like the meme content or the talking about TV series content so much, you just want to see some cool games that you like, that is going to be where that channel is. Just games all the time, that kind of thing. This channel will still be a streaming channel as well as a personal use channel. I would be remiss not to talk about the fact that on Sunday, I'm going to be making a point at the last hour of our Sunday stream, which starts at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. We are going to be doing, we're going to be giving people the save file essentially. So whilst we're hanging out, send me a friend request and just tell me, pop your head in the comments and say that's my username. I'll find you, throw you some gear, and you'll be good to go. So hopefully you guys will check out the new channel. The next build we're going to be trying to make a dent in, although don't hold me to it, is a love letter to one of my favorite characters in all of Wonderlands, Krieg. Hopefully I can make a dent in that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed the save, and thank you so much for your time. Hopefully I can see you in the next video as well. Bye, guys.